Hey everyone, it's Jackie from Vegan Yak Attack, and I'm back with another recipe for y'all. I see that during this kind of weird time that we're in, a lot of people are turning to bread making as a new hobby or maybe a continued hobby. Like myself, I made some sourdough. I've seen a lot of you doing the same thing. I hope that they're turning out great. I love sourdough bread. So I thought, as opposed to just toast or avocado toast, which I love dearly, I wanted to give another option for maybe the sourdough that you're baking, taking up your time a little bit with some Berry Sourdough French Toast. Very luxurious breakfast. Now, if you don't have sourdough bread, you can use French bread just as usual, or pretty much any other bread that you have on hand. This is a little bit more sturdy, so pay attention to maybe how much liquid it soaks up and different notes like that. But I just want to put that out there. You don't need sourdough for this. This is just what I'm using, and it's going to be super delicious. The little sweetness of French toast and then that sourness from the dough. Although this one's not quite like super sour, it's just going to depend on your bread, truly. And if you haven't started on sourdough but you're interested, I do want to recommend, I love this site, The Perfect Loaf. And also King Arthur Flour's site has a ton of sourdough tips and recipes and things like that, how to start your own starter, keep it going, revive it, etc. I usually keep a starter just in my fridge for a few months at a time, honestly, because it's not something that I do all the time. But I have broken it out more recently, made this bread, use some discard and some other recipes, so that will be something else that maybe I'll do some videos on later on. But I just wanted to throw that out there. Those are some tips for starting your own sourdough. Otherwise, this recipe is super easy. And I tried to make this as pantry or freezer friendly as possible. I'm using some frozen fruit here. Almost everything else just gets stored in your pantry. Actually, I think everything else gets stored in your pantry. We're just gonna be blending up some cashew cream. That's optional. You can, if you have cream cheese or a vegan whip on hand already, totally go for that. But this is pretty simple to throw together. It's gonna have a cooked berry topping that again is also very simple ingredients. And then just the kind of egg sauce that we're dipping the bread in before we cook it. So let's get going. So first, I'm starting with the cashew cream. I'm doing this because it's gonna thicken up a little bit after we blend it, and I wanna chill it as we're making everything else because it does come together really quickly. I've already soaked these cashews in boiling hot water for about like half an hour, 20 minutes, kind of depends. Even though this is a high power blender, it still makes it easier to make the cashews, or the cashew cream, and blend it up super smooth. So we're gonna dump that here in this blender. And then I have some granulated sugar, because we're also using that with the berry topping, so I don't wanna switch up sweeteners too much, but you can use maple syrup or agave nectar. If you have it, it works just fine in this cream recipe. And then just a pinch of sea salt. And we're going to add about 3/4 cups of water for now. Kind of see how it blends, see if we need to add more. Do you, depending on how your blender reacts. All right. Pardon the noise. Let's blend this up. Okay, now that it's blended a little bit, I'm gonna scrape the sides. And the key here is, even if you have a high-speed blender, what I like to do is leave this in here for just another couple minutes, and then we'll blend it again. And that way it just gets super luxuriously smooth. Even if you have a blender, like I said, that isn't as high power as this one, it helps tremendously. And sometimes I'll even do that without pre-soaking the cashews, just as a shortcut to save a little bit of time, a little bit of water, and not have to worry about it too much. So I'm gonna let that sit for just a second. Okay, it's been a couple minutes. I'm just gonna give this another whir. Okay, and then looking at it, it was probably closer to 2/3 cup of water that I used. But like I said, just use as much as your blender needs. And it's going to thicken up in the fridge. So it may seem pretty loose right now, but it's not going to be once it's cooler. Ooh, yeah. So I'll transfer this to the bowl and then rinse this out because we will need it again to make the French toast batter. And if you, let's see, if you're allergic to nuts, I think another option for this that would be really good is either making a coconut cream, like whipped cream. I can link to that in the description for you. And then even still, actually another great shelf-stable, pantry staple is silken tofu. So maybe some of that with a little bit more sweetener, just do it to taste. That might be a really nice protein-rich substitution for this kind of cream. Like I said, if you can't eat nuts. That's perfect. So now I'm gonna put this in the fridge and then we are going to get started on assembling the French toast batter, and then right after we're gonna make the berry topping. All right, now to start this super simple French toast batter. We have some full fat coconut milk, so I just used canned kind and made sure to get some of that coconut cream that separated to the top, because sometimes that happens even with room temperature ones. Put that in there. So what I'm doing here with this is that typically, you know, somebody would be using eggs in the batter for this, but what we're recreating with these ingredients is a fatty, proteiny substitute that's a little savory and a little sweet, and that can be used on the French toast to pretty well replicate what's going on there. So I have that fatty coconut milk that's in here. And then I have some garbanzo flour or chickpea flour. So that's gonna be that protein, that little bit of binder that is gonna be in this batter. And if you're worried about not using chickpea flour for anything else besides this recipe, I have some frittata recipes on my site and quiche and stuff that uses it. Or you can go to a lot of stores and just get it in the bulk section and just get the little bit that you think you need. Otherwise, I store it in my freezer so that it lasts for a long time. Now for that little bit of savoriness, I have some nutritional yeast. Oh, and I'm actually, not that you can see, I'm wearing Lauren Toyota's Nooch God shirt right now. But we're gonna put that in here, just a little bit. And then to add, I have some vanilla extract, about a teaspoon. And here you can use a pinch of salt, again for that savoriness. If you have Kala Namak, which is also known as black Indian salt, it's a sulfuric flavored salt, so it gives it that eggy flavor. I'm gonna add just a little bit of this. You can get it at Indian markets actually very affordably. You can also order online, it's usually just a little bit more. So we're gonna add a touch of that for that sweet farty scent. Oh God. If you've never used it before, it's kind of a shock the first time, especially if you're vegan. Otherwise, you're just like, what? It's kind of wild. I love using it though in any vegan egg-based thing that I do. So we're just gonna blend this up real quick until smooth. And then because the chickpea flour needs a little bit of time to absorb the moisture from the coconut milk, I'm just gonna let it set while we start the berry topping. Now I'm going to scrape down the sides because I see a little bit of dry nutritional yeast over here. Give it one little whir. Wow, got salt. And if you really could go without any of the eggy flavor, you can forego that salt. I will say because it is salt, it cooks the flavor out just a tad. So it's not super strong in the end product. All right, that's ready. I'm gonna move this off to the side, get this blender out of here, and get this griddle out, and then start the berry topping for you. I have this super OG waffle iron and griddle combo that's kind of amazing, and I'm not sure I found anything quite like it that's modern. Got this at I think a garage sale or estate sale. Anyways, doesn't matter totally, but this is what we're cooking on. So I have this warming up. So we're going to put these berries, these frozen berries, in this saucepan. Now I measured these while they were frozen. If you wait for them to thaw out and then measure them, chances are you're going to have a considerable more berries, or the higher amount, I should say, of berries. So if you want that short, that's fine. Just know that I measured these while frozen, so they took up some more space. They didn't weigh as much. So don't go by the weight if you use fresh or thawed berries. And then I'm gonna sprinkle some sugar over this, just granulated. Like I said before, you can use whatever sweetener you want or what you have on hand. This is just what I'm using. This makes things a little bit easier. And now I'm going to cook this on the stove over medium heat and wait for that to simmer a little bit. I'm actually going to cover it first, and then after a few minutes when the berries start breaking down, I'm going to add this cornstarch slurry. So that is just cornstarch mixed with water. And that way when you add it at the end, you don't get these weird clumps of cornstarch in your berry mix, and it'll thicken it up, make it nice for just dolloping on your sweet French toast. Oh, we lost a berry. Just stir that to coat everything. Because everything still needs to warm up while this flame is hot, like I said, I'm gonna cover it, and that way it can simmer together. All right, like I said, those are gonna cook for a few minutes, then we're gonna add in the slurry, let it cook some more, and thicken up. Now I'm adding in that cornstarch slurry, and I broke up the big strawberry chunks a little bit with the spoon. So, stir that in. You see it's thickening up right away. Woohoo! Look at that! Yum! Alright, I'm going to turn the heat off of this, because clearly it doesn't need any more. And then just cover it so it doesn't lose any moisture while we're cooking the French toast. The berries took maybe 5 to 7 minutes, so they're already done. And now I'll tackle this French toast, because I want to keep my eyes on them. I don't want to burn anything too badly. Now, I have a shallow bowl here, a pretty large one. You can also use an 8x8 baking dish, or maybe even a cake pan will work just fine. Just something shallow to pour the French toast batter in, because you want to soak the bread in it. I think we got most of that. And this, ooh, that's hot. You may have to adjust the temperature, but I feel like medium heat is pretty good for something like this. Maybe medium low if you want to cook it for longer, and lower. So I just sprayed this with a little cooking oil, and it doesn't really matter what kind you have. We're going to soak our first, I should probably get a fork for this instead of using my hands, eh? So we're gonna soak our first piece of sourdough in here, maybe another small one, just to save some time. Ooh, feeling the heat. All right, and then this will get much thicker as it cooks too. Chickpea flour is like that, where it can be a little deceptive. Like when I make frittatas, it just looks like it's gonna turn out like soup, and then as soon as you cook it, you bake it for a while, it ends up really thick and kind of like an egg texture. So put that over here. Ooh, that sizzle. Start another piece right here. I like to let it soak for, like I said, this is a hearty bread, sourdough is. So I like to let it soak for, upwards of like a minute or so. I think this one's good. Put that over here. Ooh, it smells good. You see it gets a little drippy, but it starts firming up right around the edges. You want to wait a couple minutes until that edge starts browning a bit before you try and flip it. Here we go. Drip off that little bit of excess. Hopefully I'm not tackling too much at the same time here. But I like to offset them a little bit. That way you can just flip one, wait a little bit, flip the next. It's kind of your process. If you're making a super large batch, what I recommend doing is maybe turning on the oven to about 200 degrees and then having a baking sheet out. And as soon as these are done here, you can just put them on there, put them in the oven, and they'll stay warm without getting too soggy. And then you can serve a big old brunch if you want. Ooh. Well, that one's getting there. I don't want to be too eager beaver. That's what I struggle with pancakes and French toast, and even potato hashes sometimes. I'm way better off with an oven hash than a skillet hash, to be completely honest. Whew. And actually, this reminds me that in my second cookbook, Vegan Yak Attack on the Go, there's some camping recipes in there, and there's a foil-wrapped French toast that is just one big French bread loaf, and you pour everything in there, put it on the fire, like kind of on coals, and it's so awesome. I really love bringing that out on camping trips. All right, oop, I may have been just a tad early. Ooh, but you see that goldenness happening right there? These are looking good. They smell delicious. I may just have to flip that one over to get a little bit more cooking time. Ooh, while we're looking at these, I left this covered so that it holds some more moisture, like I said before. But you get this really nice thick berry topping that we're gonna put on our servings. It smells really delicious. And I use strawberries and blueberries for that, but you can use blackberries, raspberries, whatever kind of berries you have on hand or that are in your freezer. Maybe mix it up a little bit during the summer. You could use some frozen peaches if you want. You know, there aren't really that many rules in cooking. More so in baking. All right. Ooh, nice and brown. Looks good. I feel like this side might be a little hotter than the other side. Seems that way. Okay. Carefully get this one up. Oh yeah, those look delightful. It's been a while since I made French toast. This looks good. And then we'll just repeat the last 4 pieces. I'll see you on the other side of topping all these things. These look beautiful. I'm gonna plate these up, taste them before we tackle the rest of them, because it's just me eating these. I can do whatever I want. That might not be the same case for you. I'm gonna put a small piece with one of the larger ones, trying to be fair, you know. Ooh. Oh my. Take this off and put it over here since it's done. So you got nice and brown. Ooh. Oh, there we go. Now, put a little berry topping on here. I'm glad that that made it on the plate. That is more than enough. Right. And then this cashew cream, thickened up nicely. I'm actually just gonna drizzle this on. Oh yeah. Do a little powdered sugar on here if you want. Now, moment of truth. Ooh, you see how the sourdough softened up so nicely. A little worried because this might be very hot. Mmm. I love bread. It's the best food group. I love bread, I love making bread. And this French toast turned out awesome. I love, it's not super sweet. I like desserts and stuff. I just don't like them to be cloyingly sweet. So this berry, cashew cream combination, got that creaminess, the little crunch from the French toast, and it's not too soft, which is not to be picky, sometimes a problem I have with French toast. I cannot wait to finish this, and currently eating breakfast for dinner because that's how we roll sometimes. So you can find this recipe link to veganyakatak.com in my description, and I will link anything else that I talked about in this video just so that you don't miss out any cool sourdough information or anything else like that. My second cookbook that I mentioned with that French toast in foil. And I will see you on the flip side. Make sure to like and subscribe, and hopefully I'll make some more videos for you guys soon now that I have a little bit more downtime. See you later.